When Diana Mitchell walked into the conference room at Whitmore Associates for the Monday morning partners meeting, the racist senior partner glanced at her and said, "Coffee's in the back, 2 sugars." He assumed she was an assistant. What he didn't know, Diana wasn't there to serve coffee. She was the newly appointed managing partner, the most powerful position in the firm, and his boss. His assumption just ended his 25-year legal career. Diana Mitchell had spent 18 years building a reputation as one of the most brilliant corporate attorneys in Chicago. At 43, she'd graduated top of her class from Yale Law School, clerked for a federal appellate judge, and spent the first decade of her career at major firms handling complex mergers, securities litigation, and corporate governance disputes. She'd won cases that other attorneys said were unwinnable. She'd brought in clients worth tens of millions in annual billings, and she'd done it all while navigating the particular challenges of being a black woman in an overwhelmingly white male profession. 3 months ago, Diana had been recruited to join Whitmore Associates, one of Chicago's oldest and most prestigious corporate law firms, with a unique offer. She would start as a senior partner with the understanding that within 6 months, she would be promoted to managing partner, the firm's highest leadership position. The firm's executive committee had been searching for new leadership for over a year. The previous managing partner had retired, and the firm needed someone who could modernize its culture, expand its client base, and navigate an increasingly diverse business landscape. Diana's track record was undeniable. She brought relationships with Fortune 500 general counsels, expertise in emerging industries like tech and biotech, and a reputation for building high-performing legal teams. But Diana also knew that her appointment would be controversial. Whitmore Associates had been around for 104 years. In that entire history, every managing partner had been a white man. Most of the senior partners were white men in their 50s and 60s who'd been with the firm for decades. Diana would be breaking barriers, and not everyone would be happy about it. The executive committee had decided to keep Diana's promotion quiet until it was finalized. She would attend firm meetings as a senior partner for a few weeks while contracts were signed and the official announcement was prepared. This gave Diana a unique opportunity to observe how the firm really operated when people didn't know who she was. On a Monday morning in early November, Diana arrived at Whitmore Associates offices on the 42nd floor of a downtown high-rise. The firm occupied 3 floors of sleek conference rooms, corner offices, and rows of associate cubicles. Everything was designed to project power, tradition, and success. Dark wood paneling, leather furniture, walls lined with framed photos of landmark cases and distinguished alumni. Diana dressed impeccably, as always, a tailored navy suit, cream blouse, simple jewelry. She carried a leather portfolio and wore the quiet confidence of someone who'd earned her place at every table she sat at. The Monday morning partners meeting started at 8 a.m. Diana arrived at 7:50, planning to observe the dynamics before the meeting officially began. The conference room was large, with a long mahogany table and high-backed leather chairs. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Chicago skyline. When Diana entered, 5 partners were already there, chatting and pouring coffee. All white men, ranging in age from late 40s to mid-60s. They glanced at her briefly, then returned to their conversation. Diana took a seat near the middle of the table and opened her portfolio. She didn't introduce herself. She wanted to see how she'd be treated when no one knew who she was. More partners trickled in. By 7:58, there were 12 people in the room. Diana was the only woman, the only person of color. At exactly 8 a.m., the door opened and Robert Thornton walked in. He was the most senior partner at the firm, 64 years old, silver-haired, with the bearing of someone who'd spent 40 years at the top of his profession. He'd been with Whitmore Associates since he was a first-year associate, had tried dozens of high-profile cases, and had mentored generations of younger attorneys. He was also known for being traditional, set in his ways, resistant to change. Robert took his seat at the head of the table and glanced around. His eyes landed on Diana, and his expression shifted to mild confusion, then dismissal. "Excuse me," Robert said, his tone polite but firm. "This is the partners' meeting. Associates meet in conference room B." Diana looked up calmly. "I'm aware. I'm a partner." Robert's eyebrows raised. "I don't believe we've met. I'm Robert Thornton, senior partner. You are?" "Diana Mitchell." A few of the other partners exchanged glances. Diana's name had been circulated when she joined the firm, but clearly not everyone had paid attention. "Diana Mitchell," Robert repeated, clearly searching his memory. "Corporate practice?" "Yes." "I see. Well, welcome to Whitmore." His tone was perfunctory, the kind of welcome that said, "I'll remember your name for the next 5 minutes and then forget you exist." He turned his attention to the rest of the table. "Let's get started. We have a full agenda this morning." For the next 30 minutes, Robert led the meeting, discussing ongoing cases, client developments, firm finances, and staffing decisions. Diana listened carefully, taking notes, observing how decisions were made and who had influence. At one point, the discussion turned to a major client, a pharmaceutical company facing securities litigation. Robert was explaining the case strategy when Diana noticed a significant issue. She spoke up. "Excuse me, Robert. On the pharmaceutical case, have we considered the recent SEC guidance on disclosure obligations? It was issued last month and could impact our liability theory." Robert barely glanced at her. "We're aware of the guidance. We have it under control." "I've handled several similar cases," Diana continued. "The new guidance creates a potential issue with—" "Ms. Mitchell," Robert interrupted, his voice cooling. "I appreciate your input, but this case has been my responsibility for 6 months. I think I have a handle on it." Diana felt the subtle dismissal, the tone, the body language, the refusal to even engage with her point. Around the table, a few partners looked uncomfortable, but no one spoke up. 20 minutes later, the discussion shifted to staffing. Robert mentioned needing associates assigned to a major merger closing. Diana spoke again. "I have 2 associates on my team with M&A experience who could help. I can coordinate—" "That won't be necessary," Robert said, cutting her off. "We prefer to keep the core team consistent on these matters." He turned to another partner. "David, can your group handle it?" Diana felt her jaw tighten. She was being systematically ignored, dismissed, talked over. And it wasn't subtle. Near the end of the meeting, Robert stood to refill his coffee and glanced at Diana. "Actually, while you're here, could you grab me a refill? 2 sugars, splash of cream." The room went silent. Diana looked at him steadily. "Excuse me?" "Coffee," Robert repeated, gesturing to the carafe on the side table. 2 sugars. The assumption was breathtaking. He'd looked at the only black woman in the room and decided she must be there to serve. Diana's voice was calm, but carried an edge. "I'm not here to get your coffee, Robert. I'm here because I'm a partner." Robert's face flushed slightly. "I was simply asking—" "You were asking me to get you coffee in the middle of a partners meeting," Diana said evenly. "Did you ask any of the other partners to get your coffee?" Silence. A few partners stared at the table, clearly uncomfortable. Robert recovered his composure. "I apologize if I offended you. I didn't mean anything by it." "Didn't you?" Diana asked quietly. The meeting ended shortly after. Partners gathered their materials and filed out, several of them avoiding eye contact with Diana. Robert left without another word. Diana remained seated, taking a moment to process what had just happened. She'd expected some level of bias. She'd dealt with it her entire career. But the blatancy of it was still jarring. The door opened and a woman entered. Patricia Lowell, the firm's executive director, a white woman in her 50s who handled firm administration and operations. She'd been the one who recruited Diana. "Diana," Patricia said, looking concerned. "I heard what happened in the meeting. Word travels fast. One of the partners told me Robert asked you to get him coffee." Patricia sat down, her expression troubled. "I'm so sorry. That's completely unacceptable." "It's not your fault," Diana said, "but it tells me everything I need to know about the culture here." Patricia hesitated. The executive committee is meeting this afternoon to finalize your managing partner appointment. The announcement is scheduled for tomorrow. Do you still want the position? After this?" Diana considered the question. She could walk away, take a position at another firm, avoid the fight, but that's not who she was. "I want it more than ever," Diana said, "because if this is how Robert treats a partner, imagine how he treats associates, staff, clients who don't look like him. This firm needs to change, and I'm going to change it." Patricia smiled. "Then let's make it official." The next morning, at 9 a.m., Patricia sent a firm-wide email. Subject: Leadership Announcement. "Dear Whitmore and Associates team, I am pleased to announce that Diana Mitchell has been appointed managing partner of Whitmore and Associates, effective immediately. Diana brings extraordinary legal expertise, client relationships, and leadership experience to this role. Please join me in congratulating her and supporting her vision for our firm's future." Within minutes, Diana's email inbox exploded. Congratulations from younger partners and associates, surprised messages from colleagues at other firms, and a terse, one-line email from Robert Thornton. "I'd like to schedule a meeting at your earliest convenience." Diana responded, "My office, 2 p.m. today." At 2 p.m., Robert knocked on Diana's door. She now occupied the managing partner's corner office, spacious with a view of Lake Michigan, filled with the gravitas of the firm's highest position. "Come in," Diana said. Robert entered, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked uncertain. "Diana," he began, "I wanted to congratulate you on your appointment." "Let's skip the pleasantries," Diana interrupted, gesturing to a chair. "Sit down. We need to talk." Robert sat, his expression wary. Diana leaned forward. "Yesterday morning, you did 3 things. You assumed I was an associate and told me I was in the wrong meeting. You dismissed my input on a case without even considering it. And you asked me to get you coffee. Do you know why you did those things?" Robert shifted uncomfortably. "I made a mistake." "You made assumptions," Diana corrected. "You saw a black woman and decided I couldn't possibly be a peer. You decided my legal analysis wasn't worth hearing. You decided I was there to serve, not lead. And now I'm your boss." Robert's face reddened. "Diana, I've been with this firm for 40 years. And in 40 years, you've clearly never learned to see beyond your own assumptions," Diana said. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to undergo mandatory implicit bias training, not the online checkbox kind, real training. You're going to apologize to me, in writing, for your conduct. And you're going to be on notice. One more incident like that, with me or anyone else, and I'll recommend your removal as senior partner." Robert's voice rose. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious," Diana said calmly. "You're a talented attorney, Robert, but your attitudes are outdated and harmful. This firm is changing, and you can either change with it or leave. Your choice." Robert stood, his jaw tight. "I'll consider my options." "You do that," Diana said. "But while you're considering, remember, I control partner compensation, case assignments, and client relationships. So think very carefully about your next move." Robert left without another word. Over the next 6 months, Diana transformed Whitmore and Associates. She implemented mandatory diversity training for all partners. She created mentorship programs for women and attorneys of color. She brought in a consultant to audit the firm's compensation practices and found significant disparities. Women and minority partners were being paid 15 to 20% less than their white male counterparts for equivalent work. She fixed it. Some partners complained. A few left, including 2 senior partners who couldn't adapt to the new culture, but most stayed, and many thrived under Diana's leadership. The firm's client base expanded dramatically. Companies that had avoided Whitmore because of its reputation for being old-fashioned and exclusionary now saw it as a forward-thinking firm. Diana personally brought in $25 million in new business in her first year. As for Robert Thornton, he completed his training. He apologized, genuinely, after some reflection, and slowly, he began to change. It wasn't perfect or instant, but he started listening more, assuming less, and treating colleagues with respect regardless of what they looked like. 2 years into Diana's tenure as managing partner, the firm held its annual retreat. During her keynote address, Diana stood before 200 attorneys and staff and told the story of her first partners' meeting, the dismissals, the coffee request, the assumptions. "I tell you this," Diana said, "not to embarrass anyone, but to remind us all. Change doesn't happen by accident. It happens when people in power decide that the old ways are no longer acceptable. It happens when we hold each other accountable. And it happens when we refuse to let assumptions define who belongs at the table." The room erupted in applause. After the speech, Robert approached Diana. "Thank you for not giving up on me," he said quietly. "I was wrong about everything, and I'm glad you're leading this firm." Diana smiled. "We all have blind spots, Robert. The question is whether we're willing to see them and change. You chose to change. That matters." If this story resonated with you, remember, professional discrimination isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's being talked over in meetings, having your expertise dismissed, being asked to get coffee while your male colleagues lead discussions. But when women, especially women of color, reach positions of power and use that power to demand better, entire institutions transform. Share this story. Subscribe for more moments that challenge us to question our assumptions. And if you work in professional environments, remember, respect isn't earned by credentials alone. It should be given to everyone, automatically, because they're human.